here, setthebase.triathlon.com. We are going over Ironman 70.3 Washington because that's the group that we were first posting this in. But if you're watching later on YouTube, this is the race we're talking about. And specifically, I want to talk about the run course because it's looking pretty interesting, and we'll just dive right into it. If you hit the website, they're describing it as flat. And look at the average air temperatures. We haven't done the post on weather yet. That's coming up later. But average air temperature of 65 degrees. And looking at the course ahead of time, this should be a very spectacular and runner-friendly course. That is for sure. So diving right into it. If you hit the courses and you hit the run course, you get the course map. I always like to make sure I get it on the screen on the PDF, because then you get the turn-by-turn instructions and you also get the elevation profile. So what I like to do is kind of look. First thing is a one loop out and back. So personally, I'm a bigger fan of just a one loop. That way you don't have to run multiple loops. They don't take you by the finish line and kind of tease you or something like that. It's basically, there's one little U-turn section out here, and you run this little section twice, but it's basically all the way out, all the way back. You hit the U-turn and you come back. So it's really not too crazy or anything like that as far as that goes. And you can tell from here it's on the trail system. So it is, and I'm not local. I'm out in Kansas City, so I'm doing this review for my athletes. I've heard there's some crushed gravel, perhaps. There's probably some paved sections in there, but just be ready. It could be, for the most part, crushed gravel. So there could be some sections that it's just kind of loose. But really, personally, when I do races, we've got a couple here that are on crushed gravel trails, and I really don't treat it any different. I wear the same shoes I would for any other race. You might want something a little more traction, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I actually kind of like crushed rock a little bit better. I mean, it's a little more forgiving than pavement, but I mean, not much. And there's opportunities if it rains on it and you got some water and you got some muck and mud, it could kind of cause a problem there too. But for the most part, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But kind of going ahead, I like to go down to the bottom line. What's the elevation gain? So about 500 feet of elevation gain for 13.1 miles. Now, I wouldn't call that like really flat per se. I mean, you got this meandering uphill, and then you come to your turnaround, you come back, and then you got a little bit uphill coming in. So you're going from about 350 to 525. So that's not exactly, I wouldn't call that easy. I mean, you're going uphill the entire time. So it's going to be a little bit of a grind getting that elevation in as you're moving along. There's a few little rollers up front. Then coming back is going to be nice. You're going to be a little downhill section, but then you're going to have to climb the last, probably 2.5 miles is kind of a little uphill to the finish line. So just got to be ready for that. Don't get suckered in. This section right here where you're heading out, you can't see that as well. Let's see if I can get that on the screen a little bit better for you. So what you want to do is be careful with that. You don't want to go out too fast in this first little downhill section, because you can be lulled into a false insecurity, being like, oh, this is easy. I want to blow past this. This is best. I want to have a PR in this race. This is going to be best half marathon ever. But once you start hitting this climb, it's going to be over for a little bit, and then a little bit downhill, and then climb into the end. So don't take it for granted. This first little section is a nice little downhill for the first 2 miles coming out of transition. So just don't be lulled into a false sense of security that it's going to be a nice, easy peasy type of race. So let's get the rest of the course back on the screen for you. So looking at it, I always like to look, the maps and everything are great, turn-by-turn instructions, and basically transition and finish line are all in, I believe this is Lake Wilderness Park. So there's not going to be, you don't have to get transported from some races this year. The finish line is a mile or 2 miles away from transition, so they're having to set up ways to get the athletes back to transition. For this, it's all right there in Lake Wilderness Park. This is where your spectators should probably park for the most part and kind of watch it as far as athletes go. But looking at it, the logistics of after the race is pretty straightforward. Finish line right there. Go get your stuff. You're all done. Good times. Because you don't really want to be walking too far later after the race. 70.3 miles is a long morning, and the last thing you want to do is be carting around, getting all your stuff and walking around and fun stuff like that. But I digress. What I also like to do is I like to look at the terrain. So I go to Google Maps, and you saw me pull that up a little bit ago. So I like to look. It, maybe not for this race. It's not much of a problem, especially if it gets to 65 degrees. Now, we're not talking about weather, so I don't know what the forecast is looking like at this exact point in time. We're about 2 weeks out. It could be warmer than usual, so just be ready for that. But if it hits the average temperature that Ironman says of 65 degrees for air temperature, coverage from trees and everything on the run probably isn't going to be as much of a deal. It could possibly be a deal if it's raining and windy or something like that. It kind of block a little bit. But what I like to do is look at the Google Earth view. And what you got here is this is the trail system you're going to be running on. Zoom in and kind of see that. The Cedar to Green River Trail. So Cedar to Green River Trail. This is where it's at. So basically, you're going to head out of here and you're going to be in trees. You follow this whole thing, and basically it's nice because this little trail system is tree lined the entire time. You go up, you hit a U-turn, you come back, you hit this side of the trail system going out, trees, trees, trees. You cross a few streets, trees, 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 and more trees. And then you come out of Big Bend natural area, come out on the other side, do U-turn, and you come back. So not sure, looking at the map, where they're going to put this U-turn. I'd imagine it's going to be somewhere around here so they can get to it in a little access area so they can set up maybe a transition station or something like that. So they bring you back out and they loop you back through the trail and you come back. Instead of going back out towards along the highway, you're just going to hit this little U-turn and then come back in. It looks like, well, let's make sure. So you come back out of the transition. Turn right at Wilderness on Room, left River Trail, turn around on Cedar River Trail on the easternmost turnaround, blah, 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 turn around, right Cedar Green, turn right in Lake Wilderness. So in 1.5 miles, turn right into Lake Wilderness Arboretum, and 3 miles, turn to finish line. 4 miles, turn around on Cedar River Trail, northernmost turnaround. 0.6 miles, turn right Cedar to Green River Trail. So you have to be careful. You want to make sure that you're following the directions here. It looks like when you come out, you're coming out, and you don't do this U-turn at first. You come out and you do the trail system, you come back in, and then you hang your right, and then you come up here and do the trail system. So if you're following the arrows that they got, it doesn't look like you'll be hitting that U-turn on the way out. You'll hit it on the way back. Let's read the turn-by-turn instructions. I know this is like watching paint dry. Exit transition, turn right in the Wilderness Arboretum, turn left on the Cedar Green Trail, 1.7 miles, turn right onto Cedar River Trail. So if we look at the two trails, so Cedar Green River Trail and then Cedar River Trail, so this is where you take a right. So this is the little turn area. So it looks like on the way out, they do not have you do this U-turn. You come back, and then when you come back in, turn around on Cedar River Trail, eastmost turnaround, and 4 miles turnaround on the Cedar River Trail on the northernmost turnaround. So you're hitting this, and you're staying on the Cedar River Trail, and you're hitting the turnaround, and you come back out. So I know I've overshot this on a few courses, and they've gotten so many turnarounds of different little areas and stuff. Sometimes it can be confusing. So make sure you do read the turn by turn directions, and especially this one. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing crazy going on. It's not like a bike route or anything like that. It's basically two trails. So you come out, turn right, hit the trail, turn around, come back, hit the turnaround, come back, finish line, raise your hands in victory, take your finisher photos. You're all good. But so looking at, well, this is why I like to go look at Google Maps, because if you're looking at that, the couple things I like to be on the watch for is how much you're going to be exposed to the elements. So on this run, it doesn't look like the sun's going to be, even if it's like 90 degrees and the sun's right over your head, you got so many tree lines, unless it's directly overhead. But you're going to be running in the morning, starting the afternoon. So depending on where the sun's at, it's tree lined. So you're going to get protection from the breeze. So if it is hot and it gets a little stagnant, you're not going to get much breeze along the trail, maybe. So that might be a consideration. But I think this time of year it's going to start cooling off. Hopefully that's not a problem. again, I'll do a weather one. We'll talk about the weather forecast. So you're going to be exposed to the elements probably on the trail a little bit. So maybe sunscreen's you're going to want some sunscreen on you. But I think there's going to be some shade along the trails in different sections. So I think that's going to be really helpful. Maybe sunscreen isn't as much as an issue, but I would definitely get some sunscreen. So you're coming out of T2, just kind of lather up or whatever, just to make sure you don't get sunburnt while you're out there running 13.1 miles. Because last thing you want to do is deal with the sunburn while you're trying to get to the finish line and there's any suffering going on. That sunburn will just add to it. Hopefully you've got your nutrition, your hydration dialed in on the bike, because that'll set you up for the run. And you can notice on the course map where they've got the aid stations. So it looks like mile 1, mile 3-ish, mile 4, 5, what we got, 6, 7, 8, 9, kind of close to 10. Looks like we got an aid station. It looks like it's only on one side, so you're going to have to get around this turnaround. Sometimes they got people standing on the other side of the trails that'll hand you stuff too, so you might be able to hit this aid station kind of in this. But, I mean, it looks like they've got them just about every 1 mile for aid stations for you, so should be plenty of opportunities to stay hydrated on the run, get any nutrition you might need, some gel shots, or if you need solid stuff, they got that on the trails. Really, I think it's a little bit deceiving. They call it flat, but just be careful. I think you're going to get this false security that is going to be super easy when you head out, because you got this nice downhill section. And unfortunately, you can't see that well. Let me get the screen set up. So you got this little downhill section. Take that as easy as possible. Really dial it in, because you got a nice little climb from miles 2 to looks like 6 here. So you got about 4 miles of kind of a meandering uphill. And then you get a nice little downhill, and then the last, let's see, this is probably like mile 11. So the last 2 miles are going to be another uphill, because you're just kind of doing this turnaround deal. So make sure that you've saved enough to do this little 4 miler, kind of a grind uphill, in this last little 2 miler, because you don't want to get to those last 2 miles and then be dragging up these last hills and you know, look like death when you're trying to climb up to the finish line and trying to get there. So just take those first 2 miles nice and laid back, nice and easy. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity, especially if the weather plays through. It's not going to be hot. It's not going to be death out there. And it's nice and tree lined, so you're going to get protection. If it's crazy weather, you're going to get protection. If it's hot, you may not get any wind, just with the trees out there. But you should get some shade and some relief and that type of thing. So I think that'll really help you out. So overall, this looks like a fun little run course. Kind of like out in the wilderness, no pun intended, like Wilderness Park and all that kind of fun stuff. But again, I'm not doing the race personally. Maybe in the future I will, but I've got a lot of athletes out there doing it, so I'm doing this prep for them. And I've made plans for athletes and everything, and making sure that they're prepared for the race out there. So I think the major thing is, we've talked about the bike. Make sure you're ready for the bike. Make sure you're prepared for that. When you come to the run, it's not going to be super killer. It's nothing. The elevation profile, it says about 500 feet of gain, but it's just kind of a slow meandering uphill, so it shouldn't be a killer. And I would advise a little bit of sunscreen out there. They've got plenty of aid stations out there, so it shouldn't be a problem if it does get a little warm, to get some water, some ice, and that type of thing. So that's basically it. So hopefully, if you like this, give it a like. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, give it a like, give me a subscribe. If you think maybe I missed something, like I've gotten great feedback from locals and stuff. If I missed something, make sure you put it in the comments so people can see that too. Be like, oh, hey, by the way, you missed that and the other. Because like I said, I'm here in Kansas City, so I don't see this locally. I'm doing the best I can, kind of giving the demonstration of people that, you may be flying in from out of town doing the race and you're just not familiar with the area. You need to go out there. You need to do the recon on the course the best way you can. And there's so much information out there with the maps, with Google Earth, all this other stuff. You could do Map My Run or whatever if you want to check the elevation profiles and that type of thing. There's plenty in like Garmin and Garmin Connect. I'm sure people have run this course and they put it on there so you can look at the elevation profile. So there's plenty of information out there. So hopefully it helps you out. Like it. Put a comment there if something needs to be done better. Subscribe to YouTube, all that kind of fun stuff. Stay tuned later. We're going to talk about the weather and spectator guides, where they should be hanging out, and all this other stuff. So make sure you're following the page and getting notifications when we go live. Let's talk about future stuff. Happy training out there, and good luck on race day.